Hey guys, welcome back to a brand new video. In today's video, we're going to be looking at the 2024, almost the 2024 presidential election. Another vaccinated individual decided video, which I guess is what I'll be calling them. So yeah, this person was all vaccinated and they want to see this video, so we're going to get right into it. First, I do have a couple announcements for the channel. Two things for the month of September. So first, I might not be uploading as regularly for personal reasons. Nothing crazy. I'm not going to stop uploading, but it might, there might be a stretch in September and October where I just don't post for like 3 or 4 days instead of the usual every other day schedule I have. I'm going to continue to try to keep uploading every other day, but that might not be realistic. So if I, randomly don't upload a day when I should be uploading, I guess you'll know why. So, yeah. Now, also, another thing for the month of September, I would have liked to go live for the California recall. Unfortunately, I'm not going to. I actually have something for school that night, so I don't think I'll be able to do that, unfortunately. But I do think I'll be live with Pro Political Talk for the Canadian election, which will be 6 days later. So I get that some of you might be a little more interested in California, but the Canadian election, and I'll be able to do videos on that. I guess can be your consolation prize. Probably be on Purple's channel though, but I'll be sure to put the link everywhere. I'll spam it on Twitter. I'll spam it on the community tab. You know the drill for when I go live with Purple. But speaking of Canadian election, I've gotten pretty into it. I tweet about it a lot. I think you should definitely go follow me on Twitter. I'm at UAP YouTube. I tweet about that a lot. So if you want updates on that, you definitely want to go follow me on Twitter. But I'll be making a more in-depth video for sure, at least once before the election happens, because it's a pretty exciting election. But I will be sure to talk about it at least once on the channel, but I talk about it every day on Twitter. So, yeah. Now, let's hop right into it with this prediction. So, AOC, she'd carry, some states pretty solidly. I think she'd do quite well in Colorado. There are a lot of young progressives there who didn't turn out for Biden as well, but he still won the state by a safe margin. So, I think AOC could actually do a little better with Biden in Colorado. Hispanics in New Mexico, Colorado, and some parts of Nevada are actually pretty liberal. Like Sanders' coalition over here was basically made up entirely of Hispanics, and so Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, being obviously very ideologically close to Senator Sanders, I think that she would do pretty well in New Mexico, especially with Hispanics. Now, that being said, Hispanics in New Mexico vote very differently from Hispanics in Florida, Illinois, Maryland, Delaware, I call it Virginia, New Jersey, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, New York, Vermont. Whoops, that's New Hampshire, not Vermont. But AOC would carry the first district in Maine by a safe. No, that's the second district. The first district in Maine by a safe margin would go to AOC. I also forgot to label Hawaii as a safe Democratic state. That's obviously a shoe-in for AOC. Marjorie Taylor Greene, though, I think that she would. These are two candidates that might not be considered as moderate. I don't want to label either of them as extreme because that would, that's kind of rhetoric that would be used. No one defines himself as extreme unless they're a terminally online 4chan user. And, I'm hoping that neither of these people have 4chan accounts because that would be really bad if for our country. But I do think that we're going to see Marjorie Taylor Greene being labeled by the Democratic Party as a whole as a pretty extreme candidate. And the GOP is going to do the same thing with AOC. But I think that it would be a little less effective because Marjorie Taylor Greene is considered by some to be more extreme than Marjorie Taylor Greene, because she is a little more mainstream. She has, I think, a wider base of support, even though, they each have a strong base, but I think AOC could be considered a little less extreme than Marjorie Taylor Greene, even though I think the majority of Americans would not view either of these candidates very favorably. So the reason that I have Mississippi and Missouri safe is because Missouri is just shifting away from Democrats, especially, and, the only Democrats that actually do okay in Missouri are conservative ancestral Democrats, or I guess who have appealed to ancestral Democrats. AOC does not have that, so I think she'd get blown out in Missouri. I think she'd do pretty poorly there. She'd lose Indiana, she'd lose Mississippi just because Marjorie Taylor Greene's from the South. I think she could do all right there, but she wouldn't win Kansas by a state margin, I'll say that. The reason that Montana and Utah are left blank because Montana's trending blue and it was a 15-point Trump state in 2020, so there would be, like Montana's still a pretty small state, so there's a lot of room for AOC to gain with just, a couple thousand voters here that could shift it to the left. And then Utah's a state that's trending blue as well, but it's more specifically they just do not, for whatever reason, seem to like populist or right-wing Republicans as much as they like Mitt Romney's and Spencer Cox's, which is why Utah GOP is pretty moderate. Now, for our likely Democratic states, I think AOC would win the state of Virginia by a likely margin. Well, I'm not having a good day today. I am calling New Jersey, Virginia, calling Virginia, North Carolina, and I'm probably going to call Kansas, Alaska next time I do this. But Virginia would go to AOC by a likely margin, probably by a similar amount as Biden. She wouldn't do as... So here's the thing. Both AOC and Marjorie Taylor Greene are pretty poor candidates for this region, but I think that it would get a little narrower because Marjorie Taylor Greene will have somewhat of a regional appeal here because she is from the South. She is from Georgia. AOC is from New York City, so she kind of would lack that appeal to Virginians. But I still think that at the end of the day, it would be a pretty solid state for her. She'd also win New Hampshire by a likely margin. Same with Maine. And, AOC, usually I have her doing, like when I make election nights between her and DeSantis or her and Trump, I usually have her doing pretty poorly in, New Hampshire and Maine. I think I usually have her, winning Maine by only 2 or 3 points, and I have her losing New Hampshire, and I have her, making Connecticut and Rhode Island be single-digit states. But generally what I have is her doing pretty poorly there, but against Marjorie Taylor Greene, these are both pretty weak candidates, so I think that it would not really narrow up as much as it would if the Republicans ran someone else. So for Marjorie Taylor Greene, I think she'd do pretty well in a couple of states. She'd win Alaska by a likely margin. She'd win Utah, Montana, Kansas, and I'm not going to spend too much time talking about this because I'm in a rush right now and I do not feel like doing it. But I think that at the end of the day, she would do, well enough in these regions. Iowa and Ohio might be thinking that they'd be lean or maybe even toss-ups, but AOC is just not a very strong candidate, and, her, and especially with rural white voters in Iowa, I don't think that she'd have very good appeal to these voters, and especially because of the trends in Ohio, that there are only, a handful of counties out of, the 65 counties in Ohio that actually shifted to the left in 2020, and they're all, relative to the rest of the state, they're shedding population, Cincinnati is shifting blue. The Columbus suburbs are shifting blue, and there are maybe a couple random counties in rural Ohio that have 200 people that are shifting blue, but it's not enough to combat the red trends we saw with Trump. And I get that Trump was a really good candidate for Ohio. I'm not going to say that it'll continue to shift 8 points to the right every election cycle, but what I will say is that Ohio is undeniably a red state now, and I don't think that if the Democrats would have to go to great lengths to carry it at the federal level anytime soon, and that is why someone like Sherrod Brown is very vulnerable in 2024, despite being a strong incumbent, just 3 years ago. So yeah. Now for and also she'd win just by a likely margin. For our lean states for AOC, I think she would win Nevada and Arizona by lean margins. Arizona, both AOC and Marjorie Taylor Greene would get hosed there if they ran against anyone else, but these are really bad candidates, especially for a state like Arizona, which likes moderates, and the Hispanics in Arizona were pretty moderate in 2020. They didn't shift to the right as much as other Hispanics did. I think Biden did fairly well with Hispanics in Arizona relative to his performance in Florida and Texas. So I think they'd stay blue, but, if you're going to go to the comments and you're going to tell me that I'm totally wrong, I don't really blame you. This is kind of a broken clock is right twice a day thing where I think both these candidates would be really unappealing to these voters, but at the end of the day, Arizona's shifting blue, and I think AOC just has a bigger base there than Marjorie Taylor Greene does. She'd also win Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan by lean margins. She'd win technically Nebraska by lean margins. So her coalition across the Rust Belt would be pretty similar. She'd just do really well in urban areas with college towns, and she'd just, I think, narrowly hold on to working class voters. She has, I think, a little better appeal to working class voters than Marjorie Taylor Greene. She wouldn't, revert her back to Obama numbers, but it would still kind of hurt, because, look, if Trump couldn't win the working class, or, if he couldn't do well enough with working class in Michigan and Minnesota and Wisconsin to win them, Marjorie Taylor Greene probably isn't doing that no matter who she runs against. So I think that these are lean Democratic states. Now, for Marjorie Taylor Greene, I think she'd win Texas by a lean margin. I think she'd win Florida by a lean margin. I also think she'd carry North Carolina by a lean margin. So that narrows it up a lot because Texas and Florida are huge Republican states, or not huge Republicans, huge, I guess, big states that vote Republican in this scenario. But Texas, I think she'd hold because AOC wouldn't do enough to keep pulling Collin and Denton and Tarrant counties to the left. She also wouldn't make too many gains in the Rio Grande Valley, though she would make some, so that's why I'd narrow up a little bit. Florida, I think, would actually get more Republican. And, I get that Marjorie Taylor Greene would be considered by most to be an ideologically extreme candidate, but in Florida, the Republicans are always going to have an edge there for the foreseeable future, and AOC is not the one to float Florida. She is someone who has labeled herself as a Democratic Socialist, and I know that you can put the Democratic Socialist, put it there, but I think that the second part, socialist, is significantly more. It has significantly more weight. It carries more weight with voters, especially in Florida. And as we saw, Cubans, especially Cubans in southern Florida, on exit polls, they said that they really preferred Trump because of the socialism issue, and I think that we all know that. So AOC would really get hurt in Florida because of that. For North Carolina, I just think it would stay red. Not too many turns going on here, but AOC is MTG is from the South, and AOC just would not do very well with black voters that are relative to Biden, and she just would not, I don't see any suburban trends getting, I don't see any suburbs bolting to the left way it did in 2020 with AOC on the ballot, even if it gets, even if it's against someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene. So, it'll come down to Pennsylvania and Georgia, but I will give Georgia to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. It's close. I think Marjorie Taylor Greene would actually do a pretty good job of getting the turnout from the red areas up here. Her district is the 14th district, which is right here. But, yeah. So, I think Georgia would go blue. It would just stay blue because AOC would do well enough in the Atlanta area to hold the state. But, it would be close. Pennsylvania, my wildcard pick for this video is that it'll go to Marjorie Taylor Greene. Mostly because I think Pennsylvania is going to be I'm not going to graph it, but because I can't do that right now because I'm not going to edit this video at all. But, picture a graph in your head, and you guys, I'm assuming you guys are pretty smart, if you're spending your time watching election forecasting YouTube videos, fingers crossed you guys are, I think all you guys are smarter than me, but, imagine a graph, right, I don't even know what to call it, but, a graph of values, and we have 2012, 2016, 2020, and then 2024. Right now, I think red Pennsylvania is peaking because the suburbs aren't maxed out for the Democrats, but the rural areas are maxed out for Republicans, and working class voters have been really red with Trump on the ballot. Now, in 12 to 20 years from now, the suburbs are going to be maxed out for Democrats, rurals are going to start to get a little bluer, and working class voters, who knows where they'll be, but I think that they'll be a little bluer. So I think for that reason, Pennsylvania right now is the time is just bad for Democrats in Pennsylvania right now, and I think for that reason, Marjorie Taylor Greene will win it. Not only because she represents the state well, or because she'd be popular there, both the scans will be horrendous there, but just because AOC's, Marjorie Taylor Greene will make AOC seem like someone who is, anti-coal, and she AOC just would not, I don't see her doing very well in Chester County or Montgomery County or Bucks County. So for that reason, I think she'd lose it, but she still win the election. So that's my for this video, guys. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you all in the next one.